6th.
All right, it is 6:01 p.m. I'll call health and safety to order. Members present are Dan Wireball, Steve Young, Martin McKeever, myself, Chair. First topic, is there any public participation for health and safety this evening? Hearing none, there are no minutes yet to approve. Those will be held to a future meeting. Mr. Gerner, you're up next with the vacant properties.
So Bucyrus has a fair amount of vacant properties, and one of the problems that we run into is multiple of these vacant properties are owned by parties that have addresses in Puerto Rico, California, Louisiana, South Carolina, and so we can send them all kinds of violations, we can post notices of violations, but that doesn't necessarily get us to fixing the problem. So there are a couple different benefits to having a vacant property registry. Obviously you'd have to get compliance from some of these, or there would be penalties, which would then also lead us back into the problem of you can penalize people, but if they don't show up to court, I can't put a business in jail. All I can do is file contempt. But it does give the fire department notice of which buildings are vacant, and as such, which buildings, if they were to catch on fire, should not have residents in them. It also gives the police department an idea of what properties are vacant. And again, which, if there's vacant properties, which under the code would have to be boarded up, if those boards were removed, obviously law enforcement would know something is amiss. So, a benefit would be increased safety for your first responders. It also protects property owners who do maintain their properties in those neighborhoods from having vagrants going in and out of these buildings. Oftentimes these buildings are used for nefarious activities, drug activity, those types of things. And I would say most properties do not remain vacant other than properties owned by corporations that don't reside here. As your landlord crew can tell you, it doesn't benefit anybody to have a vacant property. You pay taxes, you pay water bills, upkeep, maintenance, all of that good stuff, and you don't earn any income. So most of these are corporations that are using them for tax benefits and other purposes. There are some landlords, but usually they won't remain vacant. And so I will forward to all of the members of council a couple different options. I know Crestline has like a progressive tier where it's like $500 to register the first year, $1,000 to register the second year, and $3,000 or $5,000 to register the third year, which to me seems onerous and exorbitant, but those would be discussions that we could have pertaining to fees for registering them. And that goes to a fund then to maintain those vacant properties, because oftentimes we are the ones that end up maintaining them.
Do we possess the ability to create terminology and definitions? And the one I'm going to specify would be, what is a vacant property? In the insurance industry, it's after 30 days. Can we say that if one of these gentlemen owns a property and somebody just moved out and they're going to take the next 2 to 3 months to clean it up and get it ready for their next tenant? Is there a way we can say after a blank amount of time, give them 4, 5, 6, 7 months before they have to register, to alleviate all of those concerns?
Yeah, so you can define a vacant property as you wish. I think it's, well, I'm not sure which city it is, but they have like 90 days, and it's also unoccupied, unsecured, unsafe buildings, unoccupied, having utilities disconnected, unoccupied, having building code and housing violations, illegally occupied, and or unoccupied for a period of time over 90 days, and having existing code violations by the property maintenance officer. So you can kind of cater that to what your needs are.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Wireball.
I think if they don't have water service, then they should be deemed unoccupied. And then they should have to go through this. I mean, we can monitor that here easily through the water department if they property no longer has water service, you know, typically somebody moves out, somebody moves in, and then the water service is continued. If it's not continued, then then the landlord should be notified, and, then they can go through the vacant property process. I don't think it has to be an exorbitant amount at that point, but that's a good way to monitor which properties. The one that comes to mind is, it was a friend of mine's property on Whetstone Street. It's been empty for years, and I'm sure they're not paying water, so that should be unoccupied, and I'm sure it's unoccupied, but, like I say, every year, then you jump that amount up and attach it to the property taxes, and at some point, property taxes are more than the value of the property, so then they're just gonna turn it over. If we ever get a hold of them.
Okay, wait, I want to add before it
Okay.
comes up. We, in support of the landlords, if they show that they are actually working on it, I mean, and it doesn't matter if they need 3 months, they need 3 months. All they just have to do is somehow report to us, as in either the zoning administration or somewhere, wherever we could get it, that we could do this, because they may have the water shut off because they're replumbing it, or
Yeah, there
they're-
needs to be a provision where somebody
Right.
can make a.
if
an
they've
exception.
made an application that they're gonna need X amount of time, and we know the ones who will abide by it, they're gonna work on it, and there's those, like he's saying, there are corporations that are in Puerto Rico that they're not gonna do anything. That's what I'm saying, that, we can work on that.
Yeah, and so a lot of the, like, property code violations, I mean, that's what we do anyways. We work with landowners to get compliance. I mean, they work with Gordon, they work with myself in order to, I mean, it's more beneficial for everybody if we get it done without having to go to court, because the court has limited ability to help in this situation anyways.
Can I ask you to step to the podium for the recording purposes and those watching at home?
Paul Moser, but Mr.
I
McKee.
need, Paul, I need you to come up to the podium, otherwise it won't pick you up.
Mr. McKeever pretty well addressed what I was thinking about, is that you can't base it on utilities.
That might be one thing we could look at.
Right.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, so.
But we also know where you're at, you know? So when we look at your property, we know that it's owned by Paul Mosier, and we can come get a hold of you. When I look at a different property and it's out of Puerto Rico,
I
the
understand.
city of Bucyrus isn't gonna send me to Puerto Rico, unfortunately.
I understand, but my statement to Mr. Wireball would be, if I have an empty apartment on May, I don't turn the gas on. If I'm gonna be taking 3 months to clean it, I have in the past brought hot water from home, you know? I mean, so there's so many variables.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If we know that somebody, you would just submit a thing to the city that I'm gonna be working on.
You
something.
addressed it for me.
Yeah, I think all of us on the committee, probably all of us on the council, our goal would be to do something that works well for everybody.
Mainly the ones who are out of town that don't care and don't try to do anything. That's like out of town as in Puerto Rico, that kind of out of town.
I don't care, I don't mean to be rude, but I don't care if they're out of town or in town. You know, it shouldn't be discriminatory in any way. You know, it should be set up with
Right.
fairness and common sense.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think, I wasn't real specific on that, but I'm thinking something like, okay, $25 for the first year. Oh, $25 for the first year, it's vacant, okay? And then after that, let's go, $100 next year, $500 next year, $1,000, something like that. I don't know of anybody, I own rental properties. I don't know of anyone who wants to let it sit there for more than 20, or more than 12 months, and without water to make repairs and clean and all that stuff. If it sits there longer than that, then it becomes a nuisance, I believe.
So Mr. Gern's gonna send out to the committee a couple suggestions or drafts or whatever, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And with that, I also, Gordon had a couple different ideas because we've talked about revamping property maintenance, streamlining. I know a lot of times he's sent out on grass, trash, weeds, and rubbish. He goes, they clean it up. A month later, he goes, they clean it up. And so he talks about 3 strike rules where he doesn't necessarily have to issue a notice of violation if you've been given a notice for the same violation. And this would be the 3rd time. We can bypass the whole notice provisions and proceed to court. I think that's beneficial in certain circumstances. But at the same time, like I said, we're sort of like a dog chasing your tail on some of these anyways. Like some of them we're just going to have to end up mowing. The guy in Puerto Rico is not coming to Bucyrus. I don't even know who this guy is. It's probably all a sham anyways. But he has some thoughts, and I did find Rob had some thoughts before the prior law director, Mr. Ratliff, left, and so I have found what he sort of put a rough draft together, so I'll get that to all of you as well as a starting off point. And then Mr. Grove also talked about inspections for some of these residential rentals. I know I don't have as firm a grasp of that as he does, but to ensure that what the city of Bucyrus does provide as housing through our landlords is appropriate. I know that there are horror stories where landlords have rented houses without furnaces, houses that are somehow on the condemned list, but then we find that there's tenants in them at that point. And so I'll bring him in probably a month to talk more about how we can ensure that what we are renting is appropriate. And you guys, obviously this is just our thoughts. You guys have the ultimate authority to approve or deny anything that we would talk about. But I know too, a lot of those phone calls about my landlord won't fix this, my landlord won't fix that, we don't even have a furnace in this house. They come to the city and we can only do so much based upon what we currently have, and a lot of that is civil matters. And then you have the unfortunate fact that a lot of these people are paying $500 or whatever out of an $800 Social Security check. They don't have money to go hire a private attorney. So if the city can become involved in a manner to help facilitate ensuring that we do have a appropriate rental business. And I just thoughts that him and I talk about sometimes, but I will get you both copies of the property maintenance update as well as the vacant property update, and Mr. Grove will come at some point in the future to further discuss what we've talked about.
Okay, thank you.
I've got one. Well, this here.
I was gonna go around the room, so.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
okay.
We'll start here.
Well, I had one more suggestion, and I don't know, I thought I brought this up before, but this has been going on for years, so. Typically, when we turn water on at a rental, I believe the guy just comes out, turns it on at the street, and we don't know if water's shooting out down in the basement or whatever. But now I know the gas company will come in and kind of check. But my suggestion is to have, when the guy turns on the water, to walk in, go down, check the meter. Obviously, if we could come up with a checklist that, okay, hey, looks like the furnace is in there, and this, it looks like the plumbing's good, and if there's a discrepancy there that, hey, this place is, there's no floor in there. We had the one on Mansfield Street that had a toilet that was draining into a bucket on the first floor. I think we remember that one. Obviously, maybe he would have noticed that, and then we can move that move it into getting it a full-fledged inspection, you know. But, I mean, I know that puts the guy turning on the water, puts a little more work on him, but possibly it would help to alleviate some of these problems, so.
I think we'd run into the difficulty that we'd have to train them and probably pay them more as an inspector at that point. They'd have to
Well,
have
I'm not
that
saying
knowledge.
really inspect, just,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, the gas company does it. They come in, when they turn on new service, they come in and check your pipes, make sure they're not leaking and,
Yeah, they pressure test it from outside, yeah.
right. So, you know, it's just a suggestion that something we could do to maybe, head this off before.
Mr. McKeever, anything further?
No, not right
Mr. Young?
now. So I guess what Dan was talking about, yeah, I agree. I think you would almost have to have, almost like a home inspector, a little more than just someone turning the water, because he's going to turn the water on. If you go downstairs, you may not know what you're looking at. So I think we would need somebody like either we hire somebody, private person, or we would have somebody internal that's trained for that part. The other part is I agree with utilities. I think the utilities should be used as an indicator, like, okay, something happened, let's verify that it's actually being worked on or it's completely vacant. I don't think it should be a determining factor of whether charges are sent out. And then the other part, other question I had, so Crestline, they charge $1,000, $2,000, whatever they charge. Can we find out what they're actually getting in return? I mean, they actually paying these back to the city of Crestline?
So I did talk to Bailey Higgins, their law director, this week, and they've had this on the book but never really enforced it. So this is the first year they're trying to sort of go and, so I'll talk to her about that.
That's not true. That's not true. They've been doing it the past 2 years, at least.
Okay, well, Ms. Higgins has been there for a year, and I don't know, that was my conversation with her, so.
That's not happening.
I guess my
Point, I
thing,
do know, when Mr. Ratliff was here, he would mention that a lot of times these out-of-town corporations would call and ask, where do I file this, where do I send the
Yeah.
money? So,
I mean, if we can get some sort of return on this for fees for taking care of those vacant properties, then I say let's follow the lines of what Crestline's doing as far as expenditure wise. But if we're not getting anything back, then, I mean, we're just spinning our wheels, so.
yeah, well, I think once we get some stuff sent out, we can take a look at it and go from there. Any open projects any of the three of you want to bring up this evening?
No.
All right, any further public participation for health and safety? Hearing none, we'll adjourn at 6:19 PM.
October 6th.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll call the Finance Committee to order at 6:20 PM. Members present, Mark McKeever, Kevin Myers, Terry Spiegel, and myself, Chair. Is there any public participation for the Finance Committee? Seeing none, are we approving minutes or are we waiting?
don't have
on
any
it?
minutes.
Oh, okay. So we're going to talk about the Wintford, Nevada water line.
Take one and pass it down.
Take one and pass it on. He's taking one over there to Terry.
I just passed out the new cost, the way it's gonna look like for going to Nevada. As you all were aware last week, we did get $800,000 from H2 Ohio funding when Governor DeWine was here. Without that, we probably wouldn't have been able to go and do this project. But as you can see, the new total cost is $2,091,957.36. And between H2 Ohio funding and OPWC, we're gonna get $985,000
And the rest of the funding would be through the EPA on a loan, which would be $1,106,957.36. Then the way it looks, the Nevada average is gonna be $10,000 to $12,000 a month.
Mr. Chair, can I ask you?
Yes.
Is that 1.1 million, is that all gonna be our responsibility, or is that gonna be any of Nevada's responsibility?
No, that's all of ours. That's the agreement we made
Okay.
when we did the legislation
Do
2
they
years
also
ago.
have an additional expense?
They're investing about 1.2 million of their own.
Okay.
They're putting up a new water tower, some new water lines, and then that's where we have to put that hot box in on that property. And
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
So anyway, it's an average, so it looks like our income could be anywhere from $120,000 to $140,000 a year. So roughly about a 10-year payback, it'll be paid for. They want to go out to bid on 11/21, 11/28, and 12/15. So that way it's ready to go. I think the award for the loan is in January, but we want it ready to go as soon as that's final, we can get it out to bid, especially the beginning of the year when companies are looking for projects. And this is going to be a nice project.
Have the terms of the loan already been decided?
Yeah, that's through I think it's 1 or 2%.
And is that a 10-year payback or 20?
Joyce, do you have any idea?
I think we set it up as, I've not seen any of the paperwork as far as, funding goes for the loan, so.
I think
It's not recently.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the.
I think when we first applied and we didn't get any forgiveness, and we had a couple of meetings with the state of Ohio, so we can't do this project, we need help. And they came back with the H2O funding, but in the midst of all that, they were saying, well, you could extend your loan to 30 to 40 years. Well, we didn't want to do that.
Right.
So that's when we actually got Bill Reineke and Senator McLean involved, Reardon, and they went to bat for us with the H2 Ohio funding.
Jeff,
Yes.
is this going out 30, picking up Osceola also?
No. We met with the commissioners on Tuesday, and the projects that we had previously talked about, going out Stetzer to 602 to 30, that's getting ready to be finished up to go out to bid. And then they're going to continue on going to Locust Grove into Sulphur Springs and then stopping at the edge of Sulphur on 98. But where we ran into having enough money to do all projects, because as you can see, everything is going up. So we met with them on Tuesday and said, well, why don't you come off our line on Winford Nevada Road and go up County Line Road to 330 and into Osceola. We'll have a dead end at that point, but with the extra money it's going to cost to do Stetzer and 602, and then the money it's going to cost to go to Sulphur Springs is all went up. As a matter of fact, we got to have another meeting about that because it's going to get spread out over 2 years, but we went from 810,000, and I'm not get the exact dollar, but we went to $1.2 million just on those two projects going up. So we did have a meeting with them and asked them to pay for everything going to Osceola. And they would have no more money out of their pocket, because that's what they agreed to in the beginning, that this is all we're going to contribute to these. But the Osceola project, hopefully they'll take it and they'll pay for all of it.
So you're going to Center Road and down, as far as Winford Road, is that where we're going with this?
Well, I don't think they're going to come down Sin Road. I think they're going to come right off the intersection.
Okay.
I haven't seen the exact drawing, but yeah, and then we'll run all the way to Nevada. Okay. And then they'll pull off of us, which would, I think their original contribution to go to Osceola in, on 330 was going to be $1.6 million, their share. So this actually saved, overall, it saved about $120,000.
Okay.
So, but this is the first leg. We would just like it, not to exceed, obviously, the $2,091,967.
So the Nevada Winford portion is going to be done before Osceola?
Yes, and they're fully funded too, so as soon as their tower's ready and the water lines are ready, they're gonna put theirs out to bid.
Okay.
And McKeever's working on both projects, so it can kind of go hand in hand.
Thank you.
So, that's good. Anyhow, I've talked to Jeff Reeser about the, what is it, IIJA funding, the infrastructure. Yeah, so I don't know if you guys are looking into any of that. I've asked him several times to look into that, so that's infrastructure. So I forget how much, 90 billion or something in Ohio was for water. So my only suggestion is look into that. So I don't know if you guys need to, how you need to do that, but.
If I may,
Yeah.
we are working with Jennifer and Jeanette
Okay.
to see what other options are out there to help pay for these extra projects as we head
Right.
outside the city.
Because this is probably a once in our lifetime
Yeah.
funding opportunity for infrastructure, which, is bridges and water and sewage treatment plants, also, our sewage treatment plant is gonna need some help soon. So I think we've got this covered. Any questions on this or any?
I got another
Yeah,
question
yeah.
for Jeff. Is Nevada, are they working on it at the same time we are, or is ours gonna go out there and dead end until they're ready?
As far as I know, they're trying to coincide, so it's
Okay.
finished about the same time.
Okay.
But I don't know, I know he's close to having that ready to go to bid also.
Okay.
Do we require legislation for this then to go out to bid?
Yes.
Okay, well, I guess I'll ask for a motion for that.
All right, and this is to go out to bid not to exceed $2,091,957.36. Is that the way it needs worded, Jeff?
Yes, but may I interrupt?
That's why I'm asking.
I think someone had a question.
Go for it.
Podium, name and address.
Gary Harris, 1329 Nevada Winford Road. You're sitting at the corner of where Winford School is.
Right.
Going around the curve, going down Nevada Winford to take the water lines.
Mhm.
Which side of the road you taking them?
It's the north side.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Oh,
Thank you.
we got a couple easements we gotta get. Do we need one from you?
No,
Okay.
one south side.
Oh, no, it's on the north side.
'Cause I was out there when the guys was
Surveying?
surveying.
So do we need any 10% or anything like that?
Nope, he's got it added in there already.
Well, then I'll make a motion to request emergency legislation to authorize the administration to go out to bid for this project not to exceed $2,091,957.36.
Mark seconds. And are we all, and everyone in favor or all in favor? Say aye. Anyone opposed? I didn't think so. So now we're talking about the County Budget Commission. I think that's still that in here somewhere. I think this is a yearly, is this yearly or?
This is the
Yeah,
annual.
yeah.
Resolution that we do. The rates have not changed. They're just the same as they've been, as long as I've been here. So we just need a resolution accepting them, and it'll have to be an emergency piece because we'll have to pass it at the next meeting so that it can be turned back into the county by October 28th.
So just so everyone knows, this is what we get back from county taxes, what the city gets from county
this is-
taxes.
The rates for what we receive for real estate taxes,
Right.
and a little bit goes to police and fire, but it's all through the property taxes.
Okay, yes, that's what I thought. Okay, so do I have a motion?
Motion as an emergency for this resolution.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. Now, we're moving on to appropriations and transfers, all right? We've got that. Joyce,
Okay.
take us through this?
We did receive, since I referred these the other night, we got a donation from the Elks for the K-9 Fund. I just received that yesterday. So we need to appropriate that $750 into capital outlay in the police department in the general fund. and that is, like I say, to fund the K-9 unit. Then I also explained the other night that due to an unexpected retirement at the beginning of the year, we need to appropriate from unappropriated sewage disposal funds $52,000 to personal services to replace the funds that were paid out. This will cover our payroll for the rest of the year in that department. Then in our county sewer maintenance fund, I'm adding some appropriations to that because we're running a little short for equipment maintenance and also for reimbursements to other funds when personnel has to go out and check the sewage plants out in the outlying areas. So I need to appropriate $2,000 to materials and supplies and $10,000 to other uses, which is for reimbursements.
Okay, well,
I'll make a motion for the appropriations as an emergency.
okay, Mark has made appropriation, or, motion, and Kevin has made a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and I would like to thank the Elks for that donation.
Yes.
And anyone else who would like to donate, that would be great. And then, okay, we're moving on to Income Tax Board of Appeals.
Got transfers.
Oh, we got transfers, yeah, okay, that was just appropriation, now we got transfers, okay.
Okay, I need to make a transfer within the general fund. As I explained the other night, our street lighting, electric bills are increasing. We're trying to figure out why. The service director is working on this to make sure we're being charged the proper rate because we're not sure. We have someone researching it. But to cover these electric bills for the rest of the year, we needed $40,000, which is considerably more. We've been pretty level for about 3 years as far as what we spend on electric, and this year it just skyrocketed. So we had canceled a couple projects in lands and buildings. So we would like to move $42,500 from capital outlay. This is under general government, lands and buildings. And we will split that $2,500 to civil service, which is also in general government. This is because of the additional testing we're doing for police officers and other employees due to retirements and transfers. And then $40,000 to street lighting within the general fund. So this does not change our total appropriations. This is just allowing me to move funds from a line we're not going to use it to lines that need it for the year.
Okay, I'll make a motion, we transfer these funds. You need it as an emergency?
Emergency, yes.
Okay, and also as emergency legislation.
Okay, do I have a second? Second from Mark McKeever. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. One question, are the streetlights under the,
Yes, that's the account that we're working.
yeah, but is that, what is that called when we,
Not
our
aggregation.
aggregation?
No,
It's
the
not.
city's on different rates than
Oh.
the aggregation.
Cities
So-
on different rates, okay.
That's where I made, we have a different contract. And when we did that originally, I thought street lighting was under there because we've been pretty, like Joyce said, it's been pretty consistent the last 3 years, so we just stuck with where we were at.
Right.
So we get the distribution and it, from AEP, but we pay Calpine for our usage. So I actually sent her our street lighting bill today. And there's some other accounts in street lighting, like security lights and things that fall into that. But this bill is all over the place. And she's gonna do some research to see why the price is different. And so I sent her a copy of the bill.
Okay.
So I should have something for you at the next
Has
meeting.
there ever been any conversation about transferring over to LED at any point?
I already asked that.
And did they just laugh at you, or?
Maybe Mr. Young might know a little bit about that, but
I know, like,
I didn't-
ODOT's moving all their stuff to LED.
yeah.
Gotta be a reason.
I asked a couple years ago, Mr. Spiegel and I went to a meeting and I didn't get an answer that they were gonna do that. I don't think it's that high on their priority list, but I don't know. That's all I know. I can't, I don't wanna sit here and tell you anything that's,
So we basically,
we've asked to have them done and
Do they own the lights?
As far as I know, they do all the repairs on them.
Okay.
So, we just, when one's out, we call it in. There's a form you gotta fill out, and you call it in, and then they send a crew to fix them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're just at their beck and call, you know,
Yeah.
so, okay. Well, I'm glad you're checking into it. That's what we can do. All right, now we're to Income Tax Board of Appeals, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's what- I don't have
Okay, there are some steps that we can take in the income tax department for people that haven't filed, which is a remedy other than just taking them to court. But to be able to do that, we have to have this Income Tax Board of Appeals in place. I've been asking for it since the legislation changed that was effective back in 2016. And somehow, I don't know if people just don't want to do it, or can't find someone who's willing. They have to be residents of the city. They cannot be elected officials of the city. So they need to be neutral, basically. But it's up to administration to appoint one person and council to appoint the other two. It's a 3-person board. So I'm basically throwing it in your lap.
Okay, so.
Because I can't appoint anyone or do anything about it.
So can we legally advertise for people for this board?
Well, if I could stop before you
Yeah.
get that far into it. All of our other things that exist that we put people on is done through the Economic Development Committee. Does this need to go through that as well, or would this be created here and then Economic Development would fill it?
Good question. That I do not know.
Because Economic Development, I know, is responsible to put all the people onto various committees and subcommittees.
And I suppose that would be a valid question, that perhaps it should be. I don't know. I guess dealing with finances, I figured it'd be more the finance committee.
I don't know about the creation of it though versus just the appointments.
Well, it's created, right?
Yeah.
We just don't have anyone on there. They have either,
Our ordinance creates
They
the
have-
board and says who appoints people.
Oh, well then, if that's the case, I think this needs to get referred over to Economic Development and let them fill the positions.
This is different than the Tax Incentive Review Council, though.
Yes, totally different.
what's this, qualifications for the tax review?
Be a resident and not an elected official.
No, I mean the one we do have.
We don't have one right
No,
now.
but he just
I
said
mean,
You have
it's
a
in the-
Tax Incentive Review Council.
Incentive.
Right,
review.
but that's for,
Different.
yes, that's for when new business comes in.
Right.
And we set up like a tax abatement on real estate or something like that. It works through the county and the city and the schools. And then this review board meets once a year to make sure that the company has hired the number of employees they promised and is fulfilling all the obligations to get the tax abatement.
Right, so my thought was, can we combine these two, the same people, to do both of these things? Is that,
I think it's apples and oranges.
Right, and so any new tax rates would be done
Because
through
this
finance.
board is actually, if we assess someone a tax based on information or proof that we have that they owe us tax, and they disagree with that, they can appeal to this board.
Right.
And this board then has to review all the documents and make a determination as to whether they agree with us that the people owe it or that they don't. And so, having some tax knowledge would be very helpful,
right?
but it really doesn't, it's not the same as the TIRC. it's a
Well,
whole different.
yeah, I understand it's not the same, but I guess my feeling was the one just meets once a year. If we put them all together, then,
Right, but this other board could meet multiple times. Now, in the past, that wasn't the case. We only had a few cases, but this is something new that the state legislature had put in with their last revision of tax law. And if we follow through on this, there'll be more appeals, I'm sure.
well, we need to, I do believe we need to get it going. Yes? Yeah.
I was appointed to the TIRC by
Right.
Mayor Reeser, so with me being an elected official, I don't think I could be a
Correct.
conflict there.
Oh, yeah,
We combined the two.
good point. That was my question.
So do we refer this to economic development or,
I would keep it in finance.
okay?
I mean, any amendment to your tax rates or your tax structure would come out of finance.
Right.
And so this is a board that would hear those appeals and how you're assessing and all of that good stuff. I would keep it all, your tax structure in finance.
Now with that, do we then need to move the other ones out of economic development that have to do with, like the TIRC and? Is that another question for another day?
That's another question for next day.
Fair enough.
I thought that was the answer.
So, this already exists, we just need to appoint people?
Yes.
I
Yeah, so
think-
you have 3 members, but they're all currently deceased.
Yeah, I think to your question, yeah, I think we sure can advertise for it.
Yeah, I think we should, I mean, we're
Have to go to the
advertising
cemetery
for
meetings.
At least
city
2 of them
workers,
are.
and can we advertise for that?
Yeah, I think we can put out a, basically same as we
Yeah.
would any other job posting, send
I
it
mean,
out to the news
there's-
media, and if people are interested, they can send us a letter or whatever.
Right, yeah, just throw something out there that
It'd be
says.
more or less a request, I think.
Yeah.
If you're interested in filling, not
It's a voluntary position. It does not
Voluntary,
pay
there's no
anything.
pay, but,
yeah.
hey, if you wanna help the
You can still ask
city.
somebody to send you a letter stating why they want to do it and why they feel they're qualified.
Yeah, we can ask for qualifications, have them
Yeah.
submitted to the council clerk.
I mean, otherwise, we're gonna go door to door and ask people, you know.
Sure.
Would you like to do this?
We can have clerks send a letter, put it on the website and everything.
Yeah,
See if we
so,
get any interest in it.
Could we also, John, you might be able to answer this, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
go right ahead.
When you send out the next newsletter with the water bill, could you put that also on there?
Yeah, Bonnie takes care of that, so I'm sure she could
We
find a
could,
spot for
you know,
that. Yep, absolutely.
That, I mean, since it's out there, that's another way that everybody can see it.
Yeah, that's
Some
a good
people
idea.
don't look at the website or they ignore it that month or something,
Website, Facebook,
yes,
newsletter,
All ways possible.
Yeah.
yeah.
okay.
We
Sure will.
We need people for this to help your city. So, all right, so we'll be working on that, Joyce.
Okay.
Hopefully, we can get that taken care of pretty quick. New clerk hiring is the next thing on the agenda here.
Well, we have to set her pay, we did
Oh.
set her pay.
Well, the state minimum wage is what? It's going up this year, though. Good news, it's going up this year to
10
$8 or something.
It's like
Yeah,
10
yeah,
something
so-
now.
But if she works for tips.
We will allow tips.
I mean, my recommendation is to start her out at $19.50 because we were paying our previous one $18.50 and she did not have a degree in any college education. And Susan has a degree in engineering and also 33 years experience. And trust me, what she had to deal with, she can handle this well. I've seen some of her work and I wouldn't want it. My recommendation is to start her out at $19.50 and put her into the progression that we had for her rate increases per year or however we have it
Well,
set up.
little over a year, we'll have to rehire her, so.
Yeah,
But I'm saying there was a,
this will just run through the end of 2023.
yeah,
January 1 of 2024, she'll need
right.
new legislation.
But I think we also had correct me if I'm wrong.
There was a step up, I think of 50 cents an hour for January 1 of '23.
So that's what I'm saying, after January 1 of 2023, there'd be an increase, but that would only get her through the end of 2023. That's my suggestion.
I would agree with that, and we would ask for
I'll make a
a
motion.
motion, yeah.
I'll make a motion as an emergency to start Susan Zolovic's, our new council clerk's wages at $19.50 with the 50-cent rate increase at the beginning of 2023, and make her pay retroactive once we get the legislation passed.
Retroactive
If you
to.
pass it by Monday, you'd be all golden.
Yeah, we made
She
an
could start
error
and you could
on our
pass it.
meeting for tonight, so we can't do it tonight, so we will, you know,
You want that retroactive to October 1st,
yeah, just,
October 3rd?
So
Yeah.
Mark Hill made motion, Kevin Myers second that, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That's approved. Now we're talking about Arrowhead drainage. You know anything about that?
Well, I
We were-
do, but I will turn it over to the law director.
Oh, okay.
So we were approached a while back, and on the west side of the Arrowhead subdivision, there is a field. And back in 1950, 70, when they started the whole project, the entire project, Arrowhead, probably Wayside Christian and all of those, Rosedale, all of that drains down through this field. And the landowner has had some erosion and other issues. And he indicates, and I think our engineer verified, that we drain our 36-inch tile into that guy's 12-inch tile, which is no longer sufficient. Although there's some question as to, well, notice, and he bought it knowing that, and all of that good stuff. And if it was sufficient originally, how is it no longer sufficient, since there hasn't really been anything added to that subdivision substantially since whatever. So we went and had some estimates done, and we were looking at $250,000 plus to put a 36-inch tile from there to the river with all of the accoutrements that would need to be done. He presented us with a quote from somebody that he had gotten for $50,000, which is substantially less than what we could do and what we would have to pay to have it done. So one of my thoughts would be, in order to settle this issue, if we would pay him that $50,000 and he would guarantee to fix his issue and hold the city of Bucyrus harmless on any future drainage issues. We would pay him after the installation was completed. Yeah, and at that point, he fully releases the city from any wrongdoing, any drainage problems that may arise in the future. That would save, it would save, if we ended up having to do it, if there were litigation or anything to that effect, could save substantial amounts of money. And I will say, like, just in general, drainage cases last forever. There's several cases over in the Tyro where it used to be a swamp pretty much, that have been in court 15, 20 years. They're messy. Everybody, he said, she said, we don't know where it's at. It's just a real mess, and we could spend years in litigation. But that would be a plausible resolution. I don't know. I just thought I'd bring it to you because we have been talking to that guy, and I don't know that he would want to go the litigation route, but he also would want some resolution. And we are dumping I don't know exactly how it is, but we do drain, and that's the natural course for drainage, is that direction to the river. So we haven't altered the waterway, we haven't, there would be plausible arguments on both sides whether or not we've enhanced or increased what we're putting into that waterway, but that's the natural drainage, and the natural waterway would be through him to the river.
Okay, so Kevin had a couple.
So 2 questions. Do you feel that, he does have a case that this could potentially go to litigation at some point if we chose to do nothing?
So he could bring a case.
Okay.
I don't know necessarily what the outcome of that case would be. Based upon our arguments, that would be, we haven't increased anything. This, there's a he bought it knowing, and there's a 21-year rule that basically says if you're draining through that underground water course for over, I think it's 21 years, don't quote me on 21 years, but it's a natural waterway. So basically what we're doing is now draining into a natural waterway. But we also want to be good stewards of the environment, and it is creating erosion down near the river, I believe.
So your suggestion of compensating him is more of doing the right thing rather than protecting us from litigation?
It's both.
Okay. And my second question, are we able to, rather than to pay him directly, to pay his contractor once work is complete?
Yeah, we could put that in there, yeah.
That was my,
Mark?
that was my question, but you also have the no sue, he has no
Yeah.
liability to us
No
in a
future.
document prior to the construction starting.
Right. And it's all reasonable use, right? The doctrine of reasonable use applies, which is very fluffy language. What is reasonable use? We're draining all of that to where it would drain anyways. Have we accelerated the flow? That would be his argument. Our argument would be, no, it's going to drain there anyways. It's been in there for 21 years. It's been in there for 50 years. There are significant counter arguments on both sides of that issue, and it depends on what judge. And most judges, I would say, don't necessarily have lots of agriculture experience and understand these minute details. So it would be hiring experts to yell at each other and say, no, that's not reasonable because of X, Y, and Z.
Would McKeever and Associates or somebody else be involved from our standpoint to make sure that the plan was going to be sufficient to alleviate all these future concerns?
We would
before we went out to
require
spend
that,
money?
we would require that our engineer would
All right.
approve any,
Thank you.
yeah. But your underlying question, what would be the outcome of the litigation? No idea.
And one more thing, now this is, when we do this, it will be for any future owners, right? Also.
Yes, we would have to put something, like an easement or a restriction on the deed saying that we've, yeah. So that would run with the land.
Right, okay. Sounds like a good deal to me.
So,
I don't know if Mr. Wagner had, bail me out.
You got anything on that?
Well, the only thing I want to add is that it's, I think we can go back almost 50 years, because his father farmed that land, and then he took it over, and now his son is farming it, so it's been that way. There's been a few houses added, but not that many.
To increase it that much.
Yeah, so, I don't know, my thought would be, yeah, you just go to litigation, but that's up to you guys. I just,
said, let's look at this possibility. We haven't said that we're gonna pay anything.
I get it, but
Let's
it's,
look at it and see what we can do.
it's been that way for 50 years. No, I don't know.
who's been doing most of the negotiating with him, your office or your office?
Well, it started with mine, and then it went to Mr. Gerner.
Have you guys had any discussion about splitting that cost?
We have not, but yes, typically and so the difference between this and most water cases is most water cases are all my farm draining through your farm draining into the next farm. This is like a bunch of houses draining, and so typically in those they assess each farm, they're proportionate to the whole watershed. But that would be a thought, yes, we're providing a benefit to your farm as well through this. So whatever percentage of benefit to your farm, you would pay that portion and we'll pay X amount.
The other question I have that maybe you would have to look at, since that property is adjacent, was that property at Arrowhead purchased from that farmer? Which we don't know. I mean,
That lot
no,
was
that
purchased.
entire top field was a field at one time.
Mhm.
So more than likely it was, since it's adjacent, I'm not sure if it was or not. Can we find out if that was sold by that previous owner that you said owned it originally 50 years ago? When it was bought from, whoever bought Arrowhead, I'm not sure,
But he would have sold it as farmland, not with houses on it.
knowing that was gonna be a development. I believe
It was bought to
as
be
a
developed,
development,
and they
from what I
stopped.
remember.
And then that's where the water drains.
Gotcha.
So the person selling it, if it's owned by, it was owned by the same person, he was knowing it would,
It was
when I
all-
remember when it bought, when it was started, it was bought as a development. Because I remember it being a farm, or farmable fields at one time.
Maybe
A long time.
let them continue negotiating.
Yes. Something to look at.
Yeah, I mean, I'm,
No, I think it was, the whole thing was owned by the same owner, and then they rented it out for 50 years and then finally sold it. But the Arrowhead original owners owned the downstream farm,
That's what I'm
the
saying, I
down
do.
watershed farm.
That's what I'm saying.
I get it.
but I think he's saying that owners now bought it knowing that it was
Oh, for sure.
that way.
Correct,
Yeah, yeah.
that's what I'm saying, the previous owner owned all the land,
But,
so.
yeah, they had notice and
Well,
We need to look-
open and obvious.
Need some more information before we do any
Oh, absolutely.
finance.
Absolutely.
on this.
And can
It's
we
just something we're
charge,
kicking around.
can we charge him for those 50 years of irrigating his property?
The statute of limitations may run on some of that.
Okay, well, it's just trying to get something. All right, so we're gonna look into that further, I guess? Is that,
Yeah.
is that the
Just to
consensus
keep
here?
You guys aware.
Okay, yeah,
That's what we're looking at.
just let us know what we need to do. That didn't seem too awful to me in today's world, but, is that, anything else? Okay, open projects, I had went through the open projects list and kind of cleaned it up, but I still haven't got it back to you guys, so, I need it. Yes, go ahead.
I have another.
Oh, you do have,
I do have something that's on the open project.
okay, yeah.
list. You want to take one? Want to take a second? You've already seen this.
Sorry.
This is our Mary Street project that we went over 2 weeks ago in the committee meeting. And it never went to legislation to go out to bid. But as you can see on the bottom, as all of our projects have went up, it went up, and we need an additional 33,000, which we're not doing the river cleanup this year, was budgeted for 50. So we can just move that money into the Mary Street project, and we can get it out to bid. So we need, the budget was 132,200, now it's 165,284.90 for us to be able to go out to bid. And that road, that street is on our mill and pave next year. So we'd like to get that done.
So where is this from on Mary Street? From what to
Well, I
what?
think it's the sewer project,
Just curious, I'm not,
Or the Spring Street, isn't it? There, the Spring Street.
you know, I
It's
didn't-
gotta go along to
I
the
will
spring
have
to
to-
the river.
But,
It's, well, as you can see at the top, it's just separating the storm and the sanitary.
Is that all of Mary Street or a portion of it?
yeah,
That's only a portion of it, because it would be way more than this.
yeah, is it,
Yeah, so they're just doing a portion of it to get it separated.
all right. Well, I thought at one time we ran, was it Spring? Isn't one, yeah, Springs run
Yeah,
down
we
to the
redid
river?
Spring, yeah.
Rivers, or Spring separated to the river, is
All
that
the way
right?
to Charles, and then it goes to the river.
Spring all the way to Charles to the river, yeah. So
That-
this is
Spring
Mary,
Street is totally separated.
yeah.
Isn't Mary
Well, he
Street
would
done
know.
down the hill? Isn't that separated?
Yeah, I think part of it's already
Part of it is,
separated, but
yeah.
I think it goes into a combined,
Yeah.
and we want to finish separating it. This was in our budget to do, but
Right.
as you can see, it went up by 33,000.
So we're basically just adding, we're taking from the river cleanup, the 50,000, and putting 33,000. So where's the rest of the river cleanup? Just stays in the
Well, I don't-
appropriated
Joyce,
funds?
I don't know if
Is
you're
that
gonna
right?
move all 50 of it, or are you moving?
I did
30.
move all 50, but
Okay.
we'll probably have some left. I just moved it so we could hopefully move forward,
Okay.
so.
So yeah, the rest of it would just sit in the river cleanup fund, and we just won't use it.
So we
Yeah.
need to request a transfer of 33,084.90?
No, because I can transfer it because it's all in the capital.
So what do we need, just let them go out to bid?
Well, yeah, we need legislation to go out to bid.
All right.
Legislation to go out to bid for the 165 to 8490.
Yes, and that's got the contingency already built in.
Okay, so I need a,
I'll make a motion to authorize them to go out to bid for the Mary Street sewer separation as an emergency not to exceed $165,284.90.
I'll second.
Kevin Myers makes the motion and Terry Spiegel second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, so that's taken care of. All right. Anything else in open projects, I guess? No? Okay. Is there any public participation for Finance Committee? If not, we will adjourn at 7:03 PM.
And Buildings Committee, October 6th.
I'm calling the Public Lands Building to order at 7:04 PM. Members present, Kevin Myers, Dan Wireball, Brenton Potter, and myself, Sierra and Shark Chair. Do we have any public participation? Seeing none, I'll note that we're holding off the approval of minutes till the next meeting, hopefully. Do we have anything for open projects? Seeing none, do we have any other participation?
I
Oh.
just, did we get any update on the, we talked about the internet or whatever it was, the fiber optic, are we get any update on that, or? I just thought we would talk about this. It's like the second week now, we haven't really talked about anything on it. Yeah, we've had some discussion with OmniFiber, and they are looking into third-party providers to house their equipment, so they wouldn't be housed here in City Hall.
Yeah.
So that way we wouldn't open it up to having just, anybody putting equipment.
Yeah,
in
you
City
know,
Hall.
and I wasn't opposed to it, I was just surprised by it, I guess, is more, but, okay, so.
Yeah, they're looking into other facilities, other third-party providers that
Okay.
can accommodate them, maybe even better than what we can. So that's still moving forward. OmniFiber is still coming to town. They still have plans on beginning in November.
Okay, just kind of wonder what was going on. All right, thanks a lot.
You're very welcome.
Okay, so do we have any other public participation? No? All right. Then I will adjourn Public Lands Buildings at 7:06 PM.
Planning Committee, October 6th.
Okay, I will call plating to order at 7:07 PM. Members present, Kevin Myers, Dan Wireball, Terry Spiegel, and myself, Chair. Any public participation for plating? None being, approval of minutes, we will hold off until they are finalized. Open projects list. I'm working on that, trying to get that done so we can look at anything and close up any loose ends. If you have anything, please email me or discuss it and we can work on getting that. Again, any public participation? If not, I will adjourn at 7:08 PM.
Economic Development Committee, October 6th.
I'd like to call Economic Development to order at 7:09 PM with members present, C. Aaron Sherrick, Steve Young, Mark McKeever, and myself, Chair. First on the agenda is public participation. Seeing none, next is the approval of minutes, which we do not have once again, so we will shelve those until the next meeting.
Pressure there, just so you know.
And then open projects,
I don't have anything.
no. Anybody else?
I'd like you to list them.
Yeah.
If we have,
I know annexation was a big one that we had brought up a while back, that I'm still waiting to hear back about that, but
that's probably the biggest one, yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, last up is public participation again, so seeing none, we will adjourn at 7:10 p.m.
Service Committee, October 6th.
I'd like to call the Service Committee meeting to order at 7:11 p.m. Members present are Steve Young, C. Aaron Sherrick, Brenton Potter, and myself, Chairman. This time we open to the public for anybody who has anything they want to say. Seeing none, at this time we'll bypass the minutes for now till we have them for the next meeting. On the agenda is the landlord water bill. I would like to right now turn it over to our lawyer for a little bit on that. If you could, please, give us an update.
So, like, procedurally, I think council would be able to amend the current statutory or codified ordinance to accommodate some of the concerns that are out there. But I don't know that it's council's business or prerogative to go on a case-by-case basis, reviewing bills or anything to that effect. I think that's sort of in the service department as well as the utility department. But I do think probably that there's some necessity to revamp what we have, at least minimally to provide landlords with notice and an opportunity to be heard on, or notice of what their tenants' bills are. I mean, I think that makes sense. New Washington has a ordinance where landlords, the water bill has to be in the landlord's name. They won't put it in a tenant's name, which was met with some resistance. But then after, from my understanding, I don't live in New Washington, but from after a certain period, it was sort of actually benefited both parties because landlords then had an idea of what the water bill was. They could come to the department and discuss those rather than having $500 tacked onto their real estate taxes or $500 utility bill sent to them after a tenant has moved out. So sort of a better notice provisions. And I know one landlord does it that way so that he knows. And then when those bills are getting up to that point, he goes and talks to his tenants about what's going on and those types of things. That would be an idea. It's one of those areas where Ohio has rules and regulations pertaining to utilities and services provided, water, electricity for communities that do that. But it's also one of those areas where Ohio hasn't sort of exempted a home rule. So you, as a council, can sort of in place whatever structure you want within the realm of reasonable to benefit, both parties. But you have latitude. Ohio hasn't exempted us out of creating our own statutory scheme for collection and maintenance and all of that good stuff as pertaining to water bills. But I think like my original thing, and one of the reasons this was brought up was because of the water bill that was assessed to Mr. Harris. I don't think that council as a body, just in the whole statutory scheme of what a legislative body is supposed to do, should sit there on a case-by-case basis trying to manage whether or not there should be a break or something. And, and then on the flip side, I think I don't even remember, but somebody indicated, well, we're not even, this isn't our service, how do you bill us for this service? Which made me think, I get that, but it's a service provided, a benefit provided to a landlord for a service at a business which would otherwise not be able to be run without water. you can't rent a house without water. So we're providing a service to the business to make it a profitable business. But I can see all kinds of arguments, but I think generally it's not necessarily this committee or council as a whole's issue to look at a case-by-case analysis. I suppose you could create a water review board, have fun with that. But you guys create this statutory scheme, and is there problems with our current statutory scheme? Probably, especially when you don't have notice and know anything about these bills until 6 months, 8 months down the road. That would be my point, but
Okay.
that's what I
Does
got.
anybody have any questions for Mr. Garrett on this concern?
So would we, if we're going to, for lack of a better word, push this back to the administration, do we need to do anything other than just say we're not going to go forward, or do we have to make a motion to send it out of our committee back?
I would just close it.
Just close and be done?
Yeah, close it and be done. It's an administrative function.
Okay.
Your function would be if you wanted to amend the statutory scheme.
I think we need to do that. I think we need to look at that.
Can we get a copy of our statutory scheme and maybe some ideas as to others that you could come up with?
Is that a question or a request?
Yes. That was both.
I can get you, like, so yes,
Yeah,
New
if
Washington
you
switched
could get us
over.
that, that'd be awesome, because it would be
Yeah.
really nice to
Look at what similar communities,
keep things from going wrong in the
Again,
future.
yeah.
absolutely. I can,
Like, we can't really do much to backpedal or do something about the past. And we can't really do a case by case, we don't have, that's not even
So-
our authority, but,
Yeah.
We can change going forward.
Yeah. Right. So at this point, we can't do nothing with it, I don't think. What do you think, Mr. Potter?
I saw a gentleman back there raise his hand like he wanted to speak, so
Yeah.
you wanted to approach the
Come up
podium.
here.
Mike Castor, 130 Granville Street, and a lot of you met me before, different things, and from the past. Mr. Gurnett, first, a question to you. I'm looking at the future. Sometimes we act upon what's going on in front of us and don't think, okay, how's it going to act in the future? Whatever the decision that comes out of the committee, the council, or whatever, I would think they would set something in motion that, since this is a unique situation, I think everybody would agree, not something anybody planned on, everybody got caught in the corner, that whatever the decision be, either place and rewrite your ordinances so it's covered, or if you're going to waive it, make it a one-time thing. Do not set precedent in it. You need to make sure that you don't set a roadway that you want to tear up again. Either set it so you don't have a precedent, that this automatically comes up again and everybody's going to use it against you, or look at changing your ordinances and regulations to what the city wants to do. I'll put that in there for now. I had other things I was going to mention on this, depending where it was going to go. But I'll point out two of the things I was going to mention. The proverbial spot that the federal government put everybody in. As I told a niece of mine a few years ago about some of the things that could happen, probably would happen, she told me, well, they can't do that. And I politely informed her, it's not that they can't, it's just so far they haven't. There are a lot of things that our government can do that just has never been done to us. This was one of those. And as I tell some of the new officers when we put them in training, we are, as law enforcement, put in precarious positions sometimes. There is no good decision. You look at both sides. If you're lucky, you may make half the people involved in it happy out of it. On a very rare occasion, you'll make both sides happy. But more than not, in our position, we may not make either side happy. You, unfortunately, are in that proverbial position right now. You have to make the decision on what to do. Thank goodness this is your decision as members of the council and so on, how this comes out. But this is a unique situation. I would just ask the committee and to pass it on to the rest of the council. We need to remember one thing in these times. We are a small Midwestern community. We work among each other. We're neighbors, we're friends, we work together. This is not New York, Los Angeles, Chicago. And unfortunately, we're one of those little communities that the big cities refer to us, that we're in that flyover zone from Washington to California. And who cares about them? The people have to worry about us, and our neighbors and our people is us. We take care of our own. That's why Sheriff Schauber always pushed. I was a supporter of his. Home rule is what runs this country, and we need to keep that in mind.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kester. With that being said, I think at this time, we're going to turn it back over to the administration. I feel that our committee cannot do nothing with this. Unfortunately for Mr. Harris or anybody else that's in his position, you're going to have to work out something with them to get this paid. I mean, I just don't think we can do it for one person. Now, if it was a whole collective person for everybody in the whole town, we could do that. But we can't for just one person. So that's our state on it. I think the whole committee feels that way at this point. So we're going to be done with this as far as deciding what we're going to do. So go right ahead.
Gary Harris, 1329 Nevada Winford Road. When I come in here before, I was told this would be done tonight. This is the third time I've been here. When I first talked to Jeff Reeser, when he finally did return my call, he said, city didn't get COVID money. First meeting when I come in and presented this, he backtracked and said, oh yeah, we did. We got $900 and some thousand. COVID money was supposed to be for rent and supposedly for people's city utilities. This is a city utility. I don't know how you guys reappropriated the money and spent it somewhere else, but it sure didn't go to where it was supposed to go. And that's wrong.
I wasn't in your conversation with the mayor, so we don't know what was said, so.
Oh,
but
he told you right here that one day, that one meeting,
So-
yeah, that's what he told me.
I know, but,
We apologize for you being
yeah,
misled.
we do, but we don't feel that we can, as a body up here, can do this. I think it has to be an administration or a thing done.
Our
not-
personal feelings on
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair.
go ahead.
Our personal feelings on the matter
Yes.
aside,
Yes,
our hands are kind of tied in this situation,
Yes.
unfortunately. I understand.
By Wagner and by Reeser, it had to go to this one.
Well, you were wrongly,
It's a decision of the administration.
yeah, that's what we feel at this point, so.
That's a wrong
Okay.
route.
It was not a runaround. According to what we have on our books, I could not do anything. The thing was to bring it to the committee to where maybe they would look at the whole ordinance if they wanted to change something that would allow a one-time exception, that would be up to them to change that. That's why I thought it might be good for you to come and talk to them. That's all I could do. I can't, if they're not gonna change any of the ordinances, then that ties their
Well,
hands.
we're not saying we're not gonna change any, we might down the road for future stuff, but it doesn't help anything from the past, I don't think. So,
Well, the fact that you got COVID money for this stuff.
that part I don't know.
There's no reason why you can't do it.
Okay, that's, like I said, it's not on us, so. Okay, anything else from anybody? Yes, go ahead.
I want to go back.
Give your name, please.
My name is Bob Irwin, 410 Mater Drive, Bucyrus, Ohio. I'm a resident and a citizen, as you guys
We elect you guys to stand up for the residents of Bucyrus, and we pay you with our tax dollars. The city has an ordinance that says that they can charge the landlord for water or sewer, not water, but sewer and stormwater utility if the tenant fails to pay it. If this wasn't in case, Harris wouldn't have his problem. Now, there's Ohio revised codes that deal with the water part and the sewer part. The law director knows those. And it says you cannot charge a tenant for water. Cannot charge a landlord for water that a tenant used and didn't pay for. But you can put on the landlord's taxes water if he lives in the house and he uses the water. But sewer, you can. They've got a separate ordinance, or a separate Ohio revised code, and you guys ought to have those to read them, and he can supply them to you. In the code on the sewer, it basically says because the sewer is attached to the house, kind of like Mr. Gernert said, it gives the house the ability to get rid of the sewer, so therefore they can charge it. But the city has to certify the fact that the water is owed, and that goes to the auditor of the county, and then they send it, put it on your taxes. But the city collects a deposit of $180 from the tenant when they move in, and that's to go toward unpaid utilities. But the city has a formula, I'm not sure what it is or how they come up with it, but they pay a higher percentage on the water than the sewer because the sewer is going to be paid by the landlord. And the city don't have to absorb all the water costs. That needs to be looked into. I would like to see, I want a copy, or I would like to have a copy of the ordinance that the city uses. I'd like to know.
I'm sorry, but that's what we were just saying. We need to look at this. That's what we just asked him to bring in, so we can rewrite this and look at it and figure it out.
Yeah.
So you're touching on exactly what we need to look into. We just stated that.
Okay.
I didn't want you to just, because you're turning the same wheels we're saying we need to turn.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to go over,
That's all.
I want to go over this for the ones that weren't involved. I know you was. This has went on for several years. And I know you need to look at ordinance over. You need to look over these Ohio revised codes and try and figure out how this goes about. Now, the Ohio revised code says that the city can do this, but it don't require the city to do this. Most cities don't. Yeah, maybe New Washington does. There's more cities that don't than do.
That we don't know. I know Upper Sandusky charges the landlord.
Okay,
Yeah.
we know that
Yeah.
from
Columbus does.
past.
Yes.
Youngstown does.
Unless it's changed.
Kenton, Hackney
Maybe
goes
it has.
too.
But it wouldn't make it right anyway. I don't care how many do it, it's unethical. You talk about, you didn't say, but you might be agreeing with this, but Mr. Ratliff told the council that they might be committing, we talked about this before, an ethics violation if they vote in favor to do away with this program. I think the city is creating an unethical situation by doing this to start with. I mean, where else do you have to pay for someone else's bill? If a person goes in a shoe store and buys a set of shoes on account and don't pay for it, he goes back 2 months later to buy another pair, is that salesman going to give him another pair of shoes? Probably not. The city does that. If a person don't pay their water bill,
they can move out of my property, move down the street, and get water and sewer.
Well, that's something we're gonna look at. And,
Okay.
yeah, we're gonna look at all that stuff.
But I'm just,
And Rutledge
Yes.
flat out told you that the council couldn't vote on it, with the exception, I think there were 2 of us up here that didn't own property as
At the time.
landlords.
okay,
At
and
the time.
I know that.
So it was down to 2 people would make the decision for the entire council. You don't have enough.
No.
Well, but see what's wrong about that? You wouldn't be committing an ethic violation. He's saying you might be.
No, that's the Ohio Ethics Commission
Yep,
ruled that we
rules, yeah.
Yes,
The
Yep.
Ohio Ethics Commission did rule that we could not look at it.
because
Yeah.
it would
He sought-
benefit
he sought
specific people.
Something from the Ohio Ethics
Okay,
I would like to see that in writing.
okay, you can,
I don't.
Okay.
yeah,
I can't believe that they would say that because,
We got the letter.
yep,
okay, okay, I'd like to say it. If you vote, if they want to pave your street and you vote to pave your street, you're involved in that, so you can't vote on that. If they want to change the speed limit in town,
well,
you
that-
can't vote on that.
There's no financial gain.
No, there's no
There's no financial
no,
gain.
no.
No
There's
way.
financial
That's a
gain
lot
if you're a
different,
renter.
that's a whole different thing.
No, it
That's-
isn't, it's the same thing.
No, it isn't. It's different because we're not paying the city that money to do that, so.
It's
You're
not a
getting out of line
personal-
here, so we're gonna cut you off in about another.
Okay,
Welcome.
that's how the city
Yeah.
works. I mean, you table it, and you never deal with it.
Yeah,
It's,
get your point across, and we understand where you're coming from. I mean,
Well-
it's not, we're gonna look at that ordinance and get things changed, but we cannot look at something that happened in the past. That's going backwards. We're gonna look at what we can do to help you guys out in the future, is what we're looking at. So, at this point, that's all this committee can do. So,
it,
okay,
the problem with that is it's the way it always ends.
well, it's
So-
all right. It's gonna, we'll see. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, is any open projects anybody have they want to talk about? Any more public participation? If not, we'll adjourn at 7:32.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, yes, Jeff.
Arrowhead and Mary Street.
They were already talked about though.
I know, but I still think it needs approved out of service.
It's not Arrowhead, it's Winford, Nevada.
I'm sorry. Winford Nevada
Okay.
line and Mary Street.
They need to
I mean,
put
I'm
that
asking the
outside.
law
I mean,
director,
Mary Street's not even on the list.
After finance.
but it's in an
already
open project list. But do
But
they
the-
not need to be approved?
Finance committee already took it.
You can approve those to go out to bid.
Huh?
You can approve those,
They
it'll
already
come
did.
out of finance.
Finance approves
They
those for
did.
bid, and we already approved them.
But you don't have to ask for legislation.
I was gonna say, we'd already approved the projects, so it was just going back to you guys for more money.
Yeah.
You guys have previously, yeah, I mean, if you've previously approved those projects, it's fine.
Yeah.
We're just funding them at this point then, yeah.
We did.
Yeah,
Okay.
sounds good.
7:33.
Meeting adjourned 7:33.